The Golden Horde is a new variant civilization available with the DLC for Age of Empires 4 Dynasties of the East. As a variant of the Mongols, they share some similarities such as the soundtrack, voice lines, some units, and their history. However, while the Mongols focuses on the period of history up to Genghis Khan, the Golden Horde focuses after that, as it was founded by his grandsons. But behind the name lies one of the most sophisticated steppe states ever created. A Mongol successor empire that ruled Eastern Europe for more than 2 centuries. It also reshaped the political future of the Rus, and they perfected the art of ruling without ruling directly. So today, let's take a closer look at the Golden Horde civilization in Age of Empires 4 and ask that question that I always ask. How much of it is actually history and how much is just game fantasy? The Mongol Empire, the largest empire in history. After Genghis Khan unified several nomadic tribes in 1206, the empire grew rapidly, absorbing and integrating adjacent lands, cultures, and peoples. After Genghis Khan died in 1277, his lands were divided among his sons, as you do. In the Mongol Empire, ultimogeniture was practiced, and that means that the eldest son would inherit the lands that were the furthest away, which were also harder to defend and more insecure, but they were also the largest. While the youngest had preference for the heartlands and for the title of emperor, or in this case, Great Khan. The nomination of the Great Khan, however, still had to go through the Kurultai and be accepted by the members, and so it happened. His first son, Joshi, received the far western lands. His second son, Chagatai, received Central Asia, which became the Chagatai Khaganate. His third son, Ojeda, received lands in northern China, and his youngest son, Tolui, inherited the Mongolian heartlands. However, Genghis Khan chose Ojeda himself to succeed him because he was more even-tempered than his younger brother. And the Kurultai that was held in 1229 confirmed Ojeda as the new Great Khan. Jochi, however, he never ruled over his lands because he died actually 2 years before his father, before Genghis Khan. And because of that, his lands were instead divided among his own sons, Batu and Orda. Batu inherited the lands to the most west, founding the Blue Horde, while Orda received the lands to the east, founding the White Horde. This moment, 1227, is what I'm going to consider the start of Age 1 in Age of Empires 4. In Age 1, you can build the Golden Tent. This structure acts as your only landmark. Besides aging up from it, you can also produce some new unique heavy cavalry units that we are going to see a bit later. And you can also choose an Edict. Edicts provide different bonuses to the influence area of fortified outposts. These fortified outposts are unique to the Golden Horde, and they can do way more than shoot arrows and provide garrison spots. 2 edicts are already available immediately, but the other 2 edicts need to be unlocked with stone. For example, the production speed edict, which increases the production speed of military buildings within a tower's influence, while the defensive aura increases the health of units nearby towers. When an edict is chosen, a sort of golden bird is sent to distribute the message across your empire. And you know what? The Mongol mail system was the first empire-wide service since the Roman Empire. Now, these fortified outposts also have an upgrade that makes palisades and themselves stronger, which is called earthen core walls. Interestingly, the Mongols did build walls, but not in the traditional sense, because they were not made out of stone. Most of them were built with compacted earth, and these structures were used mostly to control the movement of nomadic people and their livestock. The idea of these fortified outposts sounds to me like an abstraction of the way that the Mongols and the Golden Horde used to rule. They didn't rule their conquered lands through occupation per se, but instead they would incorporate the local government, they would incorporate their laws, they would still even accept other religions from the area and so on. The only thing is, they would demand tribute to be paid. And for that, they would establish these control points along trade routes or in strategic spots to receive tribute. Now in the game, these outposts, they play a very important role, especially in the matter of city planning, because the bonuses that they provide only work around them in their influence area. So you need to think about how you're going to construct your base in a way that you don't block everything and you get the best out of it. Now, in real life, the golden tent refers to the Great Khan's tent, symbolizing the heart of the empire. It was described by Persian historians how the tent was decorated with golden textiles. But more than that, gold was the color of power and supremacy. And even Genghis Khan's family was called the Golden Clan. These are potentially the reasons that later on they became known as the Golden Horde. And horde, actually, it's not in the sense of the English word horde, but it's a Mongolian word, ord, referring to a palace, which for them, for the Mongols, was a tent. The symbol that we see on the flag is called tamga, and it was a sort of brand or seal of a dynasty, and were used back then on banners to brand livestock or even coins. In this flag in particular that we see in the game, it can be seen in the Catalan Atlas, but it's questionable if it was actually even used as a flag itself. Another building that is available from the start is the Stockyard. This is the Golden Horde's version of the Mongol pasture. In a stockyard, up to 4 villagers can work gathering food from sheep continuously. No walking distance, no idle time, nothing. As a nomadic pastoral culture, the Mongols indeed raised a lot of sheep, and they provided them with milk, meat, wool, and fuel for fire from their dung. Furthermore, their wool was used to cover their tents, their gur, which was also something very important if you stop to think about it for a second, where they are located, and remember of the harsh winters that they must have. In Age 1, you can also build stables and barracks just like the Mongols. But from the barracks, you can produce a new unique unit, the Kharash. These new units have a passive ability that grants nearby friendly units with extra armor. Kharash was actually a military tactic from the Mongols, where they would take their prisoners from previous battles and they would send them in the front line to be literally human shields. They would be the first ones to be hit by any incoming arrows or bolts. These units also benefit from a unique technology, Battlefield Salvage. This technology provides the Kharash with new shields, increasing their armor and health. We can imagine this being shields that these guys picked up from the battlefield and they are using to protect themselves now if, any of them survived the first wave of arrows. And finally, of course, you can start building Ovoos from the start, just like Mongols. And they work pretty similar, but they do not expire. They exist forever. They keep gathering stone forever. You don't have to remake them all the time. The difference here is that you can make one more Ovoo per age. So you can have multiple Ovoos that will not expire, just gathering stone for you. Ovoos were simply piles of stones raised for religious practices, and in their case, and for the Mongols, shamanic rituals. Some of them could also have the kadak annexed to them, which were a type of ceremonial scarves which could exist in different colors, just like we see in the game, and they would represent spirits and the sky and things like that. Stone is a very important resource for the Golden Horde, as most of the unique units and their technologies, they need stone to be produced or researched. And the edicts that we saw before, the edicts also are unlocked with stone. In Castle and Imperial Ages, you also have access to unique technologies that increase the gather rate of stone from the Ovoos by 30% each. Ovoo offering in Ovoo ceremony. Offerings were just traditional in shamanistic rituals, while ceremonies were also held to honor spirits, and they involved dances and music, and of course more offerings. Now from the Golden Tent, we have two options to age up. The Khan and Torguud's option decreases the stone cost of these units, and they get more health. They get stronger. Both the Khan and the Torguuds are available in Feudal Age, and we will be taking a deeper look at them very soon. The other option to age up is building cards. This age up provides 2 building cards at age up that can be converted into any building, military production, dock, or blacksmith. And future age ups to Castle or Imperial Age is also going to give you additional building cards. So now is 1229, Orda J is the Great Khan, and Batu Khan is Genghis Khan's grandson. He is ruling over the Blue Horde in the west, more specifically in the Kipchak plains. And in the game, we reached Feudal Age. Now you can get your own Batu Khan from the Golden Tent. This unique unit is like this variant's hero. You can only have one at a time, but of course if it dies, you can buy a new one. Important to know is that it costs stone, and if you aged up with Khan and Torguud, you're gonna get a little discount for them. Batu is a heavy melee cavalry unit with some special abilities. He comes with the Khan Warcry, which charges during engagements, and once it's released, allied units in radius are granted with bonus attack. And with every age up, the Warcry can reach higher and higher levels, giving more bonus, as long as the Khan is engaging for long enough. And a Warcry is a call or an exclamation just to rally soldiers to battle, to motivate them. Batu's second ability, the debuff arrow, needs to be unlocked in the Golden Tent. This arrow can be shot at a location to reveal the area and increase the damage taken by enemy units within its radius. In the secret history of the Mongols, we can see that they used many different types of arrows, like for long and short range, whistling arrows for signaling purposes, something we can see in the Mongol civilization itself and the base civilization. There were also forked tipped arrows that would do more damage, and so on and so forth. Even Marco Polo described and classified different types of arrows and arrowheads that he saw the Mongols using. The whistling arrows, for example, they would scare their enemies and their horses, causing chaos in the battlefield, while at the same time they were using it to signal and coordinate attacks. So the debuff effect of the Batu's arrow is exactly this psychological damage, this psychological impact. Now, something that I noticed is that Batu is carrying a tug in the game. Tugs were like sticks with some horsehair on top, on the tip, and they were used by the Mongols and Turkic tribes as banners. The white tug, for example, symbolizes peacetime, while the black tug symbolizes wartime. So that means that in the game, all Golden Horde wants is peace, right? Right? Another unit that can be produced from the Golden Tent with stone is the Torguud. These new units are heavy cavalrymen that get upgraded automatically at age up, and they act as bodyguards to the Khan. They have a passive ability called Khan Guard, and what it does is it redirects any damage that the Khan takes to themselves, as long as they are close enough to the Khan. In real life, the Torguuds were indeed guardsmen. They were one of the 4 Oirats. In Oirats, they were forest people that lived in the west of the Mongols, and they submitted to Genghis Khan in 12. And these people, they became part of the Keshik, the Imperial Guard of the Mongol rulers. And just like the Mongols, you can make the Keshiks as well, but from the staples, not from the Golden Tent. Under Orda, the expansion of the empire continued, including the invasion of the Rus and Eastern Europe, and also the conquest of the Jin Empire in northern China. Now at this point, the Mongols start to transition into a less nomadic way of life. Nothing crazy though, not completely, but at this point I feel elements of a more sedentary lifestyle start to show. For example, now they have a capital, Karakorum, which is walled by 1235 with the help of Chinese builders. So they are starting to, stick to one place and settle down. And not only Karakorum, but Batu also founded Sarai. This city is first mentioned in 1253 and is described a little bit like a camp and a city. However, its exact location is still debated among historians, and still we can see the city in the Catalan Atlas as well, demarked with the Golden Horde banner above it. In any case, Batu and the Blue Horde, they just continued their expansion to the west and invaded the Rus. But the Mongols, they didn't invade just to kill, just for conquest, just for pride. They invaded to enforce submission. Their interest was in gathering more people. People is power, people is production. They didn't want to kill everybody, funny enough. They even conquered by example. So they would actually be very brutal to one location, decimate everything, so that nearby cities or villages, they would be so scared of what they heard about that they would immediately surrender. They don't want to go through what their neighbors went through. And to control these newly acquired areas, as we saw, they would build these control outposts, these control points. And that conquest method is also represented in the game, which is the production style in the civilization, which is with batches of 2 units instead of 1. So it just represents an abstract way to represent the insane fast growth of the civilization, because they would conquer and just absorb them into themselves. They wouldn't just destroy everything. In the winter of 1237, Batu begins his invasion of the Rus. But why winter? Well, surely the Rus aren't expecting it, and on top of that, the frozen rivers become highways for the horses. City after city fell to the army of Batu Khan, and the decisive defeat came at the Battle of the Sit River, where the main Rus army was destroyed. It was in 1240 that Batu and the Blue Horde, they arrived in Kiev. The Mongol army, composed of mostly fire projectiles and Chinese lancers, they caused such a confusion that the people in Kiev believed that the Mongols had brought dragons with them. It is estimated that out of the 50,000 people living in Kiev, only 5,000 survived this attack. The destruction of Kiev marks the end of the Kievan Rus. The conquest of the Rus is also represented in this civilization with an age-up option to castle age called Muscovy Yasak. Aging up with this option provides better shields to heavy infantry and heavy cavalry. It also provides a passive income of wood for the rest of the game. But for each unit carrying this new stronger shield, the income is reduced. Muscovy is another name for Moscow, and it's also a duck, but I don't think that's relevant to us. Yasak was a Turkic word used at the time that means tribute. And after the conquest, Rus princes were obliged to pay tribute in order to continue ruling their own territories. The other age up option is Relic Ovoos, and this one allows more Ovoos to be created, but from relics. So any relic that you find on the map, you can use with your shaman, you can use it to create a new Ovoo. In an extra bonus from this age up, the gather rate of stone from the Ovoos is also increased. In any case, once Kiev has fallen to Batu, he continues his expansion towards Europe, but he stops not much later because Orda passed away and a new Great Khan had to be chosen. Now, Guyuk was firstly nominated, but Batu did not like that. They already have had some disagreements and Batu just refused to support him. Batu did not even attend to the Kurultai, he simply refused to take part in any of it. And during all this confusion, Batu simply started to rule the Blue Horde in a more independent way, and civil war almost exploded as well in the region. It only did not escalate because Guyuk himself, he died in 1248 when he was marching towards Batu for war, to demand some respect. And right after that, a Kurultai was held in Batu's lands to offer him to be the Great Khan, but he refused. That's not my thing. I don't want to be king. I don't want to be I don't want to be involved with any of those politics. Instead, he nominated Monke. This makes Batu become known as Kingmaker, and Monke, pleased with the situation, he also allows Batu to rule the Blue Horde independently. Now, the Blue Horde has a defined territory, it can be ruled independently, it has a standing elite army, and it receives revenue from its conquered lands. This conquest of the Kievan Rus is also represented in the game with the Rus Tributes. These units can be produced also in the Golden Horde, starting in Castle Age, and they only cost stone. They can be produced in a different way, however. Batches of them can be recruited with the stone, but the cost decreases over time and increases again to the cap once they are recruited. And if the cost ever reaches 0, meaning you never got them, you never produced them manually yourself, they are deployed automatically. So in a way, it's a passive unit that is always gonna be produced for you. These tributes are a sort of man-at-arms, but with a little bit less ranged armor. And in Castle Age, they carry Rus sabers. In Imperial Age, their visuals are upgraded and they carry instead Bardish, which are more traditional to the Kievan Rus. And later, in the 16th century, the Streltsy becomes more prominent, carrying the Bardish and a musket, a unit that you probably know from the Rus civilization. So what I mean here is that the Rus Tributes, these units that you see from the Golden Horde, they are predecessors to the Streltsy units that you play with the Rus civilization. I love these little things that they added to the game, how things just connect to each other, don't you? Now in Castle Age, a new unique unit becomes available, the Kipchak Archers. These units are horse archers, and what's special about them is that they have a passive ability called Bleed, and this makes every attack from them to apply a bleeding effect on your enemies, dealing extra damage over time. This long-lasting damage effect resembles a little bit the poison arrows of the Malians, and that made me wonder, did the Mongols actually use poison? We did talk a little bit before about the different types of arrows and arrowheads that the Mongols used, and I indeed found some reports of usage of poison by the Mongols as well. Poison arrows, and apparently their poison would come either from vipers or from some plants typical from the area from the Tibet. However, the sources were a little bit dubious, so I would take it with a grain of salt. I do think that this bleed effect instead comes from armor-piercing arrowhead or like the forked arrowhead. The Kipchaks were the overwhelming majority of the population in the areas conquered by Batu along the margins of the Volga River. And those were Turkic nomads, also called Cumans in the west. And by settling in the Kipchak plains, the Mongols became a ruling minority among the Kipchak. And when the Blue Horde marched to war in 1240, most of their cavalry, most of their horse archers were not Mengadai, but Kipchaks. That's why we leave the Mengadai for the Mongol to the base civilization of the Mongols and the Golden Horde instead. That's why they have the Kipchak. In the games, the Kipchaks, they wear these helmets, which were traditionally associated with the Cumans. Batu Khan died in 1255 and his eldest son, Sartak, was designated heir and to take over his affairs. His reign, however, was really short. He only ruled like for a year before he died. So in 1257, Berke Khan, which was Batu's brother, he came over and unified the Blue and the White Hordes into the Golden Horde. Yep. This is officially the foundation, the start of the Golden Horde. So I think in the game, the Golden Horde actually should be named Blue Horde. But the problem is no one knows what Blue Horde is. But that's what is actually represented with Batu Khan, especially as a unit in the game. Golden Horde comes after Batu. Now for this video, I will consider this moment, the passing of Batu Khan and the unification, the consolidation of the both of these hordes, the transition to the Imperial Age. Under Berke Khan, the horde became more than a Mongol conquest state, let's say. It converted to Islam, adopted the Kipchak language, and it also fully transformed into this steppe empire based in Eastern Europe instead of Mongolia. And for more than a century, the Golden Horde shaped the future, the fate of the Rus with tribute, diplomacy, and even political pressure. And to reach the Imperial Age, you can pick between the Stone Armies and the Yam Network Trade. Stone Armies is an option that allows the production of unique units of the Golden Horde to be produced from the Golden Tent for small amounts of stone, including the Kharash, the Kipchak, and etc. This age up also decreases the stone cost of Torguuds, increases the production speed, and the Rus Tributes get upgraded with more armor and the bardish that we mentioned before. This age up option again brings the importance of stone to the civilization. Now you can produce units for very cheap amounts of stone. There's a technology available in Imperial Age called Ovoo that provides an income of food, wood, and gold for every Ovoo that you have. The tithe is an annual tax that is taken to support the church and the clergy. However, the Mongols, they don't really have a church. So that's why for this civilization, then they changed the traditional upgrade tithe barns, they changed to Ovoo just to keep the game balanced and for gameplay reasons. But that's it, I thought was interesting to mention. With the Yam Network Trade Age Up option to Imperial Age, your Golden Tent will provide you with an income of gold depending on the number of fortified outposts that you have. This makes a lot of sense now, doesn't it? Now that we know what the fortified outposts were used for, to receive tribute from other conquered lands, now it makes sense that the more you have, the more gold you're gonna receive, the more tributes you're gonna be able to receive from different places, and that translates in the gold being produced as a passive income from the Golden Tent. And the Yam was a type of network for trade established by Genghis Khan, featuring multiple stops or stations along the way, offering refreshments and resupplies for the traders and even new horses. So they would use one horse until one station, get a new horse, resupply, and keep going. It was very efficient and allowed for very long travels, something that at the time wasn't that usual. or easy to do. But the same system that made the Golden Horde so strong also made it fragile. Internal dynastic struggles, shifting trade routes, the plague, and the rise of centralized powers and states slowly eroded the Golden Horde's power. By the late 15th century, the Golden Horde was fragmented into multiple khanates, and the dominance simply just faded. And that's the real legacy of the Golden Horde. It wasn't an empire built to last forever. It was built to dominate its time and reshape the entire world around it. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Give the video a thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to support me. It really helps. And I see you guys in the next one.